Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back. Everything I know about SSDs, NVMEs, and everything you've never been told. So, let's discuss this. Standardized SSD. Might notice this is a familiar case, might be on your desk now. Laptop style drives go in these things. Not the fastest kids on the block. You might be lucky to pull off, mid to high 200s read and write. Even though it's rated for 550 read and about 500 write speed, you're never going to see those speeds on an external case. Okay, let's continue. Then we have this style of a case. Now, yes, this has a Type A cable, but they do have Type C to Type C. Okay, I got one of those cases kicking around here, and it's for NVMe drives. NVMe Express. This is for a SATA SSD BM keyed drive, which means you've got two little tanks and then a wide center section, okay? These things aren't that quick on the block either, externally. Internally, though, either one of these will do really well in comparison. Why do they run faster in the computer than on the outside? Simple, kids. Amperage. You don't have it on the outside. Whether you're running Type A, I don't care what version or how new the version of USB-A it is, or Type C version, or Thunderbolt, anything external that is not a powered system, okay, where you have a separate power supply. Let me give you a perfect example. Now, keep in mind, this drive is a big drive. Weighs a few pounds because it's a 7200 RPM full-size hard drive in here. This is a powered case. Why? Not for speed benefits, that's for darn sure, because with or without, it ain't very fast. It's there because this drive wants 17 volts to run, okay? Well, there's no way to do it on 5 volts. It has a USB-A plug, but that's not enough. If you don't have the power supply on there, it ain't gonna mount. It ain't gonna do anything except probably some damage because it wants 17 volts. One side of the drive wants 5 volts. The other side of the drive wants 12. Combined, 17 bones worth of power is what this thing wants. And depending on the drive, manufacturer, size, amperage too. That's where this comes in. With the power supply, you got amperage. Now, let me give you another example here. Now, this is a Type C to Type C drive system, okay? It's specific, and it only supports M.2 NVMEs, regardless of the version they are. As long as it's an M.2 M key, goes in, works, no problem. But it's Type C. And as we know with Type C, well, that's not a very fast system. But it is a lot faster than Type A. Bonus. So we should see, even on the fastest drive on the planet that you could put in here, you could put a 7,500 megabyte per second drive in this thing. You plug it into your Type C port, you might be lucky to pull about 800 megabits per second read and write. Why? Well, because for that kind of a drive, it's best internal, but to use that drive external and get at least close to those speeds, you're going to need a Thunderbolt port, okay? And you're going to need a powered case, okay? We've talked about powered case. We talked about amperage. Let me give you the prime example. This saves you from ripping your own crap apart, but maybe you might want to after this video. This is a 256 gig M.2 drive, okay? Now, this little puppy is NVMe. It came out of my HP laptop that's off to the side here. Now, it's about 2200 read, and I don't remember what the write speed is on it, but it kind of gets pretty close to those ratings internally. Externally, though, I'm barely pulling 800 out of it, okay? This is 3,500 megabits per second read-write. That drive, by the way, chews up Where's my magnifying glass? Something I should have had out. It's usually out. It's almost always out. There it is. It wants 3.3 volts at 1.6 amps. Now, this is a 1 terabyte Western Digital NVMe Express drive. And this little puppy, she wants the same voltage, 3.3, but 1.8 amps. Now, Type A ports on computers, Mac or PC, doesn't matter, 500 milliamps, that's all you're getting, okay? Type C and Thunderbolt port, which is the same plug-in, just different data paths, you're not getting anything more than 900 milliamps. That's it. So what happens? Well, you're starving the drive. You ever wonder why your external SSD drive, when you're putting it through a heavy load, is getting pretty hot? That's because the drive is on a bus that it would prefer not to be on, because these fast drives, they don't do well on Type C, okay? They do best on Thunderbolt. This would be okay, Type C or Thunderbolt, either way, okay? But it's also a much slower drive. But when you get into these high-powered puppies and above these, they're best suited for Thunderbolt or internal use only. Unfortunately, as you know, on Macintosh computers in the last several years, Apple has disallowed us from being able to upgrade not only our internal SSDs, but also our RAM. And definitely so for the M1s and M2s, because they went and put all their apples in one basket on one chip. So you have to custom order the size of drive you want internal, as well as the amount of RAM. And once all is said and done and you pay for it, you're stuck with it. So make your choice wisely, okay? There are PCs out on the market that are preset and no way to get anything different other than buying a different laptop, but you're only going to get up to a 64 megabyte SD card basically as a drive, and probably about 2 gigabytes of RAM, because these things aren't anything good other than for surfing the internet literally and watching Netflix. They're not good for anything else. Then you get into your regular everyday computers, which do tend to allow you to upgrade your RAM, upgrade your internal storage, with usually NVMe's more nowadays than anything else. SSDs are kind of, well, they're kind of becoming a thing of the past pretty quick, but there's still a few companies doing SSDs in laptops, okay? Just not that many. But most laptops, even only having the SSD, they usually do have an NVMe slot in a lot of these. And some of them are just NVMe only. And that's fine. But why is it getting so hot? Well, you don't have enough amperage to feed the drive. Amperage controls a few things. It runs your drive cooler when you have enough amperage, so you can do a heavier load, and you're not going to slow down the drive so easily either under a heavy load, which also means you're also going to see less heat build up because you'd have the proper amperage, right? When you have the proper amperage and the proper speed of bus to go for that drive, your drive runs cooler, okay, instead of running 9,000 degrees, right? And it's not going to get slowed down very easily because you have plenty of power and then some, so it can run effectively and efficiently the way it's supposed to. But in a non-powered external case, any of these drives are going to run super hot because they're starving for amperage. They're starving for power. It's not just voltage, it's amperage. And without that amperage, things can go wrong. I actually literally cooked a drive by not having enough amperage to run the drive. You put that drive under an extreme heavy load of trying to write stuff to it, it's gonna cook. It can cook on you. I've done it. You know, reading the info from it in a big chunk can also run the temperatures up rather high. The writing temperatures are where things get more higher, more thermode than anything else. And you'll notice your drive starts to slow down as it's doing its copying routine. All of a sudden it was fast, now it's getting really slow. That's because it's getting really super hot, and it's like, I need more amps. But you can't give it more amps. There's no way to give it more amps because you bought a non-powered external. Now, I have not seen any powered external Type C drives. I have seen a Thunderbolt case or two that has a separate power source, and it needs it to run those high-performance drives at their top capable speeds. Now, the other thing is too is all these speeds are nothing but ratings of up to. It can get up to this if in the right conditions, okay? In which case, 99% of our choices on the market are not the right conditions to get to those speeds, okay? The only way we can achieve that is internal use only, or you need Thunderbolt. Unfortunately, Thunderbolt is more seen in Macs than it is PCs. Very few PCs out on the market, even expensive ones, even have Thunderbolt. Okay, I've got Thunderbolt in my gamer system. I got lucky, and I've got some Type A ports. Pissed me off though. I don't have any friggin' card reader built into the thing, but it's a gamer laptop, right? So it's for games. But either way, you're not getting the amperage, and then you're wondering why your drive's running so hot. I've seen a lot of YouTube videos where the guys say, man, this is getting pretty hot. It's supposed to get hot, though it's under a heavy load. It ain't supposed to get that hot, okay? I mean, the reason why it's getting that hot, and these are so-called tech channels, like, duh, they should know better. They should be able to explain to you. The reason why, guys, this is getting as hot as it is, which is really can be really hot at times, is not because of the lack of cooling here, because we got cooling capability. We're just getting really hot temperatures because we don't have enough amperage to drive this thing properly, which is also why it doesn't do so well on the speed test. You know, you can stick 3,500 megabit per second read-write drive in, 5,000 megabit per second read-write drive, and even an unpowered Thunderbolt port, you're not going to see those speeds, okay? You can get some pretty good speed, yes, definitely. Thunderbolt is fantastic, right? But if you really want to see that drive perform properly, run a lot colder than what it is, because it's going to heat up, even in a non-powered Thunderbolt case. If you've got a super fast drive in there and you're also trying to put a load to it, or even if you're not using a super fast drive, okay, but you're putting a load down on it, it's going to get really hot. And you can burn up the drive. It's not just about all this, terabyte writing of data stuff, okay? I mean, there's drives out there that have already doubled, tripled, or quadrupled what they were rated for, and they're still going strong, still testing as being great drives in great shape. It's just, they're quality drives, obviously, if they're still doing that well, and they've superseded their lifespan. But another thing that is going to heat up drives, even internally, in fact, what can heat up a drive internally and make that thing break down on the inside isn't going to be so much for the honking reading and writing you're doing, because it's going to have lots of amperage. It'll be fine. That temperature part will stay relatively under control very well and not burn out the drive from heat. What's going to kill it, though, is when you're going into swap. Okay, now that's virtual memory for those of you of my generation that know what the heck it is. Well, swap is the same thing. They just changed the name because of I don't know why, okay? But what happens is when you run out of hardware memory, okay, so that's your 8 gigs, 16 gigs, 32 gigs of RAM. When you run out of that because you got too many programs going on at once, or maybe you bought a computer with not enough RAM, like you got stupid and bought a Mac, for example, that only has 8 gigs of RAM in it, that was pointless. Especially nowadays, the operating system's chewing 5 gigs for crying out loud. You need more than 8 gigs. Minimum, bare minimum, 16 gigs. And even that's only going to be good for about another year. And 16 is going to be the new 8. Now you're going to need 32 gigs. Things are going a lot faster than even I predicted. So yeah, well, at least we're warning you ahead of time. So by this time next year, don't buy anything less than 32 gigs of RAM in a computer. And if it doesn't have it, get it in there, okay? So custom order your Mac online if you're going to go Mac. Make sure there's at least 32 gigs. You should be good for a couple of years. Maybe. It all depends on what Apple does. When it comes to the PCs right now, if you're a gamer, you should not have less than 32 gigabytes of RAM in there, or I guarantee you're going to be going into swap quite a bit, okay? Well, games don't use more than 16 gig. Let's do some freaking math for you, okay? So you understand. All of you. Whether you're a gamer or you're a video producer, I don't care. This is how reality works. Your computer says, I want 5 gigs of RAM on Mac OS. You launch a program, it is not giving you that RAM back so you can run the program. Your OS has to stay up and running at all times in order to do this stuff. It can't just shut down and just run an app. You know what I mean? So if your application says, I want 10 gigs to run, you got 5 gigs being used by the OS, but, well, you only got 8 gigs of RAM in your computer. Everything's going off virtual swap. Now, if you have 16 gigs of RAM, you got 1 gig left over in reserve in 16 gigs, okay? So you got 1 gig left before you hit virtual. Now, once you hit virtual, though, or swap, that means you're out of actual RAM. It used up the rest of your RAM and then put you into swap for 800 megabytes, 500 megabytes. I don't care if it's 20 megabytes. That is going to wreck your drive. That is going to heat your drive right the heck up when you're in swap. Okay, remember our hard drive from earlier in the video? Right? Hard drive, plotter, does this, just keep your OS going. Now you want a program? Now you want swap. Okay, that terrorizes a drive, man. I'm serious. Like moving parts are just going, wah! Mental. What do you think the chips are doing inside these NVMEs and SSDs? The same thing, except without moving parts. And, you know, all these little electrical things and electrons and all this stuff, if they're moving super highway speeds and brrr, they're kind of like outrunning the Flash, okay? I mean, seriously. So they're going to heat things up even more once swap kicks in. And then one of these times you're going to turn around and your computer's going to go bark on you, lock up, you'll reboot it, and it's going to be dead because you just toasted your SSD drive. You need to keep a lot of free space on drives, okay? Not just for operating system and program updates, you also need it for longevity, okay? And you need to stay away from swap, all right? Swap will kill an SSD. Hard drives can handle the torture of SSD for years, okay? Been there, done that, wrote the book and burnt it. SSDs don't like swap, okay? That's like enemy number one next to not enough amperage, man, feed me more. But you can't on an external case unless you have a powered external case. And like I said, I've yet to come across a Type-C case that's powered. Everything I've found so far is unpowered. The only thing I've found powered so far was 1 or 2 Thunderbolt cases out there. That's it, okay? But Thunderbolt is also a lot more rare, like I said, because it's more of a Mac thing than a PC thing. But the odd PCs do have them. Otherwise, it's all Type-C all the way. So you have to know that your operating system, whether it's a Mac or a Windows computer or a Linux or a Unix or a Ubuntu, I don't care what OS you run, the computer doesn't release that RAM back to you. It just keeps compiling it. I showed you guys this in a video when I was doing testing because there was no way in hell I was going to put Minecraft on my M1 Air and, you know, go into swap. But I proved to you guys that this is what the OS is using by itself. Let's go fire up Minecraft and let's fire up the activity monitor. And this is what now it's doing just to fire it up. Now, after a little bit of time and running around and playing, we're almost up to 12 gigabytes of RAM. I only got 16. But out of that 12, the bigger chunk of that was the freaking game. Because Minecraft is a rendering hog. And, of course, we have shared video in here with everything in one basket with the M1. But, you know, so it's chewing up a lot more RAM. If the M1s and M2s had dedicated video buses with their own dedicated video RAM, well, now we could say, all right, well, maybe 8 gigs may be not a bad idea, or would it? Yeah, it would still be a bad idea because Minecraft is still going to chew up a lot of RAM regardless, but it's also going to chew up video. So either way, 8 gigs is still not enough RAM for any computer, whether it's a Mac or a PC. I could care less, and I don't care how basic of a user you are, 8 gigs ain't gonna last you, baby, because right now you're losing 6 gigs alone on a 16 gig machine on a Windows computer, and on a 32 gig Windows computer off to my right, we are losing 6.9 gigs on the exact same version of Windows, but I got 32 gigs in the gamer laptop. You feed that computer more RAM for Windows, Windows wants more. And Windows keeps wanting more regardless because of all the updates, right? It wants more drive space. That's an obvious point. This is why we need bigger drives. So we need like 0.5 terabyte is the bare minimal, okay? 1 terabyte would definitely be more suitable for a lot of people. If you're heavy into video editing and stuff, well, you should be actually on a Mac at least, and even on a PC. Okay, not that I approve of video editing on PC because they're garbage, but you still should have at least a 2 terabyte of storage internally, because your internal speeds are going to be your best option for video editing production, and for fastest exporting capabilities as well is going to be that internal drive, not an external, unless you're investing. Pretty much by the time you're done, you're upwards to about $1,000. Okay, realistically, for a powered external case and the fastest drive on the planet in that case to run pretty close to those speeds, that's pretty much about where you're at. Now, I'm not saying you can't pull this off with, a slower unpowered drive, but the problem is you're going to burn up the drive, okay? It's going to run so super hot. It's going to start pulling down your system because it's being pulled down. It's going to be part of the reason why your computer thermal throttles too. Small part, but a part. Everything's connected, okay? And this is stuff you're never told or explained to about, because, I don't know, maybe these other guys on YouTube, they just don't know, or they don't want to take the time to tell you. I have no idea what their deal is. But regardless, I'm not going to sit here and candy coat anything or blow smoke up your butt. I'm going to tell you how it is, because I have the experience in these areas, which, again, I hate to say it, but it is another advantage of being a certified Apple and PC tech. I get to do a lot of experimenting. I get to know a lot of things. I get to know a lot of what my customers are doing over the years with their stuff. So I kind of know what's happening, right? And being able to do my own experimentation is kind of fun too, to see, what it takes to actually blow something up, I mean, sometimes I just sit here for fun and see, let's torture this thing. Let's see how far I can drive this thing to the dirt, and see how it really performs. Now, I'm not saying you can't get great performance out of unpowered drives. You can, but put them under a lighter load. Don't put them under a heavy load, okay? And like I said, avoid virtual memory or swap at all cost. Make sure you also have lots of hardware memory in your computer, okay? So, and if you're a video editor, the more the merrier, man, because you're going to friggin' need it. 16 gigs for the heavy-duty editors, honestly, not enough RAM. You guys should be buying a little bit more of a monster machine that can handle like 64 gigabytes of RAM should be your minimum, and 2 to 4 terabyte internal, and do your stuff internally there, but also keep a lot of free space, because even 4K and 8K footage takes up a lot of drive space. And if you want to do your editing on the external, at least have enough respect for yourself and your poor computer. Make sure you have a powered Thunderbolt case that's going to be super fast and have a really super fast drive in there, because you are going through a bus feed. You're not going direct off of a motherboard, or in the case of an M1 or M2, everything's all on one chip. So you need to go as fast as you possibly can get, so the drive also stays running cooler. Because if you over torture the drive, well, it can heat up and shorten its lifespan down quite a bit too. So keep that in mind. Anyways, I think I've pretty much covered enough on this. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. How much did you know already? And are you now happy that you know a lot more? But, also more RAM and bigger and faster SSDs internally are definitely going to make a huge impact on the performance of your computer, which we showed in the last video about more RAM, more SSD. What does it really matter, or what's the difference, what's the benefits, right? And there's definitely benefits, as we talked about in that video, so do check that one out as well. And stay tuned. We've definitely got more stuff coming for you guys. Got some Amazon stuff coming in this week, and cross my fingers everything goes well with what I ordered to get myself back up and running normal again. Anyway, thanks so much, and yeah, see you on the next one. Oh yeah, ciao. Wrong side of the camera.